Hi, my name's Zoe and today I want to talk to you about what could potentially be the most disturbing book ever written. So, I know that you guys really enjoyed, well, I say really, I'm sure some of you didn't. I know you guys quite enjoyed my extreme and disturbing horror book recommendation. So I thought, why not look at what I think is the most disturbing horror book ever written and find out whether you agree or disagree. So that book that I'm going to be looking at today is none other than, drumroll please, Marquis de Sade's 120 Days of Sodom. Quite a big boy this one, and that's what she said. But you can see the wonderful cover here, which gets quite a few looks if you are out in public reading this, which of course we're not doing anymore. So for those of you that don't know this book, you might know it by its film title because it was adapted by Pasolini into the film known as Salo. Yes, shit eating, we'll come on to that. This book is written by Marquis de Sade, who was a self-proclaimed libertine, which if you don't know what libertine means, briefly, kind of top level, it is about sexuality and a lot of other opinions, but sexuality, the one that applies to this, and being able to kind of indulge in the things that you want to, as long as it doesn't necessarily harm anyone else. So 120 Days of Sodom was written in 1785. So it's not a modern book, it's quite an old book, and it focuses on four libertines. They're very rich, powerful men who round up 9 adolescents, so they're typically under the age of 16, they're quite young, boys and girls, and take them to a house and they subject them to 120 days of Sodom, which includes sexual torture, physical torture, sadism, mutilations, rape. Everything nasty that you can think of is in this goddamn book. And the reason that it became so controversial is because it focuses a lot on sadism. Sadism was you might know of SM, sadism and masochism. So it is a term that was coined by Marquis de Sade. He is very much into, or he was very much into sexual torture, so, you know, deriving pleasure from hurting oneself or hurting another person's. In particular, when it comes to sadism, it is hurting another person. So there we go, that's sadism. There's your little history lesson. Anyway, so the book focuses very heavily on that. And one of the biggest problems with the book is the fact that it focuses around children. These acts of torture, this sexual torture, these really disturbing and disgusting things that happen to them happens against children. It's violence against children, which is, you know, is just the most horrific thing that you can think of. But for him, he believed that it was something to be explored, definitely within literature. Whether he was partaking in that in real life, I'm not entirely sure. And the book focuses very heavily on that theme. And you know, it's if you look at the film in comparison, the film shows the adolescents as older than they are in the book. And the book, it's not just what happens to those children in particular. The book also goes into these stories told by these 4 prostitutes. They're older prostitutes, and what happened to them when they were younger. And basically they tell their stories, they recount their stories, and as they're telling these stories, the 4 libertines inflict what happened within the stories onto the adolescents that they have there with them. So in these stories, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because truly it's fucking horrible, some of the things, but for instance, one of them talks about, you know, when she was a young girl, probably around the age of 7, that she started, I guess, almost prostituting herself to much older men who wanted her to pee on them. that was their kink, that was their fetish. And a lot of this soon turns into shitting on people and people wanting to eat shit out of the buttholes of young children. And it's these kinds of topics which have made 120 Days of Sodom one of the most disturbing and controversial books ever created. And for good reason, because, you know, what else talks about paedophilia, coprophilia, and God knows what else, all in one, and presents it in an almost normal, matter-of-fact way. I think that's one of the most disturbing things about 120 Days of Sodom, is it's not written from the perspective of a writer who doesn't agree with the things that are happening and presents them as if they are really nasty and disturbing. It's actually written by someone who believes that these things should be allowed, which is, it makes the tone of the overall book way worse than some of the other things out there. And I think that's why when you're reading it, it's just so tough to get through. I mean, it's taken me about 3 years to read this book, because on and off I read a couple of pages, I go, fucking hell, I cannot read anymore, put it down, wait a month, pick it up. It's a tough read. It is not a book that you're going to be able to just smash through. And if you can, I think you've got serious problems, because it's dark and it's heavy and it really makes you question your existence and the existence of other people and why the fuck other people are so messed up. But you know, that is why it's almost such an enticing read. I remember the first time I discovered this book and I read about this book online, and I went, that sounds like the most fucked up book ever written, but I'm gonna buy it. And I bought it. My dad actually bought it me for Christmas, and you know, he said to me, oh, I read the synopsis and this sounds horrific, what have I raised? And yeah, fair enough, it makes sense. But I do think that Marquis de Sade, he had some really messed up views of what he believed was right in the world. I'm sure there's plenty of people that still agree with him, and that's fine. You know, you can agree as much as you want, but going back to that point about libertine and him believing that you can do what you want as long as it doesn't harm, I think, let's be honest, sexual violence against children probably harms the children. Just putting it out there. This is a tough book to read. I have struggled, like I said, I struggled so much with this. And, you know, I would say everyone always talks about the coprophilia, so the shit eating. Mainly because when you watch the film, there's much more focus on the shit eating than anything else. And the film is way tamer than the book. Reading the book it's like a memoir of awful events that have happened that involve paedophilia and doing just sadistic shit against these young people. Like I said, it's made me sick to my stomach, honestly, like really hard to read. So I think if you watch Salo, in comparison, it's nothing. And the most disturbing part in Salo is the shit eating, because they literally have a banquet of shit and they eat shit, and that is the most disturbing part of it. But when you know a bit more about the history and you look at it in a whole and you look at the storyline overall, you realise that that is a very small segment to what is the most controversial elements of this, and that is of course what happens to the children, their age, and that just doesn't come across in the film. Whereas in the book you are immersed in this world that is, it's like nothing you could even imagine. It's almost like when you think of the shit that's on the dark web, this is basically like that, but written way before. I think some people got their ideas based on this. I'm not sure if I would ever be able to recommend this book because it is so hard to read, and the last kind of third of the book is also only in notes. It's not actually fully written, which in some ways is better, because it's when you get into the part where they start to do more of the torture, not just the sexual elements. So Maybe it's better that it's not written out in full, who knows, but it does make it a little bit difficult to read because of course it's in note form, but that I believe is because he was writing it whilst he was imprisoned, and he never actually got to finish it, which is maybe for the best, you know, maybe it's better as it is, like I said. But yeah, trying to recommend this to anyone is not something that I can do easily, and I'm not sure I'm going to recommend this to you. This is probably actually an anti-recommendation. Probably don't go and seek this book out unless you are kind of bit messed up like me, and then maybe you do want to, but I'm going to say that it's best, you know, choose something else. There's lots of really nasty books out there that won't leave you feeling like you need to take a shower and bleach your skin and perhaps even rip your skin off and your eyes off. Yeah, that's how it makes you feel. So yeah, this is not a recommendation, but I personally do think that 120 Days of Sodom is the most disturbing book ever created, and I've read a lot of messed up books, but if you do disagree, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think is the most disturbing book, and I will immediately go and buy it and read it and then let you know what I think. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you, I don't know, like this, thumbs up this, share this, or you know, you can thumbs down it if you also don't like it. That is absolutely fair enough. Thanks for watching. Bye.